I'm Rippon.
My name is Kiira Korpi.
Elladj Balde.
Can't wait to see you on Open Ice.
You're watching Open Ice.
This is Open Ice.
I'm Scott Hamilton, and this is Open Ice.
Figure skating friends and family, audiences, and skating lovers from around the world, thank you for being here and welcome to Open Ice. It's June 2021 and a lot has changed since we've seen each other last. Connection, community, and unrelenting hope are paramount now more than ever. Heroes have emerged during this past year, friends standing bravely on the front lines, fighting for the unending pursuit of social justice, and working towards making the world a better place. 4 of figure skating's biggest game changers are here tonight to tell their story and share their vision for the bright future of our sport. Our visionaries, Scott Hamilton, Adam Rippon, Kiira Korpi, and Elladj Balde, are known far more than their talent on the ice, and their impact reaches further than the arena. Tonight, they let us into their hearts, and tonight, we get to be on their team. Friends and family, champions of figure skating, I'm Kaitlyn Weaver, and this is Open Ice.
It's like so we're putting our skates on?
Yeah.
If I can remember how to do this.
Oh, I mean,
No guards.
it'd be a privilege to mosey around the ice with you.
It would be fun, yeah. Especially now, it looks like. I love the ice here because whenever I can see the pores in the ice, do you know how when you see something that you know is going to taste great, your mouth waters and it almost makes your jaw hurt? When I see ice like this and I can see it, I know it's springy as all get out, and it's like, ooh, just be able to just like fly on that ice. But that ship has sailed. So,
What's your earliest memory on the ice?
that first day I showed up at Learn to Skate in Bowling Green, Ohio. I was really sick as a kid, and so I showed up with a nose tube because I was fed through my nose, basically, this supplement that I wouldn't drink. I kept dumping it out in the sink, and my parents were like, you have to have this. And it's like, no, I'm not going to have this. And they go, for all we know, this is the only thing keeping you alive, and all the dramatic stuff, right? And so I just said, I'm not going to do it. And so our family physician came with a compromise, and that was if I would put this nose tube in, I would never have to taste it again, right? And so I was all into that. And then he said, you know, we could just tape it to the side of my face and put it over my ear when I wasn't using it. So I went in the first day to Learn to Skate, and I'm really excited to be around 120 well kids because I was used to being around a lot of sick kids, and they all looked at me like, what's wrong with you? I was like, I get fed through my nose. Sorry. Is that unusual?
We all have our things.
We all have our things, right? So getting fed through my nose was kind of just for that supplement was, you know, just sort of where I was at that time. And then after a few weeks, I realized that I could do something as well kids. And that was really powerful. And then I realized that I could do, a few weeks later, I could skate as well as the best athletes in my grade. And I realized.
A few weeks later.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I mean, we were all starting about the same time. But it was, you know, ice was a great equalizer where I didn't feel like I was less than everybody else like I always felt, you know? And so that first real taste of self-esteem was magnificent, you know? It was just like, wow. It is that stepping out on the ice, standing right on that dot right there. That was always my favorite place. It's like standing right here, and just taking it in, you know, just taking it in. And when I got sick in '97, when I got sick, my whole idea was like, just to stand here one more time.
When I think of the words open ice, I think of the freest moments I've ever had while being on the ice. If I close my eyes, I see like this hybrid of like every favorite part of every rink I've ever been to. I see the ice, it's clear, the Zamboni had just gone on, I can hear my blades crunching, I have this like smell that's like coming to memory right now of every rink I've ever been in. And it's this smell of the chill in the air. And it's quiet. And I'm out there, I'm just enjoying myself. And it's this opportunity to be out there, to feel the wind in your face, to be able to stand still and still be moving. I think what skating gave me was my little corner of the universe. And it was like the first time I felt like I belonged somewhere. You know, I'm the oldest of 6 kids. So it wasn't like my mom could just like drive with me all the time, which she was driving with me a lot. So I think like with all kids, you're like, can I please go to the rink? And it becomes this long list of reasons why you can't go. Well, it was like, you know, your brothers and sisters need to like go to school. I need to make sure that their homework is done. Like the lunches need to be made. There's a lot of things. I can't just like drive you to the rink at 6 a.m. So I remember being really young and I would wake everyone up and I would tell them that they were late for school. It would be like 4 o'clock in the morning. So I'd wake them up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I would make sure the little ones were like bathed. Like my sister's hair was like done, that all of their homework was done. Everybody was like, their lunches were made. Everything was like ready to go. And it would be like 5 o'clock in the morning. And I'd be like, oh, just kidding. The clocks are wrong. I did this every day for like a year or two before I was like not living at home. So I'd like wake my mom up at like 5:30 and be like, can we please go to the rink? And it would be like, oh, you know, I have to do all this. I'm like, it's all done. Everyone's in there, like, they're like closed to go to school. Like it's all ready. Can we just go? And my mom would be like, what? And she'd come down and be like, you know, all of my 3 youngest siblings like sitting down in front of the TV watching Roly Poly Oly. Skating was this thing where I could be totally myself. And express myself in like different characters or to different music, and it could distract from what I felt other people might see. Because I think, you know, growing up as like a young gay kid who didn't know that they were gay, the best thing to do was just to pretend that you were something else, which is something I got to do every single day when I had a different program. I could be this person, I could be that, I could portray this character. So it was a great distraction from not kind of having to deal with my own like inner demons. And I think that's probably why like I was always really self-conscious. I was such an anxious kid growing up too, so anxious. And this was the first time that I was like not only anxious, but like bold and like brave. And it was the first time I think I felt like any sort of like confidence in myself. When I started to have more success, that's when I started to kind of play this like little strategy. And I was like, I need to do what everybody thinks I should be doing. And I think when I competed and I skated in that mindset of trying to appease other people, I completely like lost myself in that process. And I wasn't focused on like, why do I enjoy doing this? Or like, how can I make this better? When really, all the viewer wants is to watch someone enjoy their own experience. But it's tough when you don't really know who you are as a person. I think when you don't really know who you are as a person, you can't really know who you are as a performer. It's almost impossible. Along the time of me really trying to do what everybody thought I should do was around the time where I was really starting to fully realize like, I am gay. I was like, there's no way around this. but it was like very taboo at the time to talk about it, and nobody talked about it, and it was very recommended that I not talk about it. Mostly by other like queer people in figure skating. I think that is based on their own experiences. And they did not want me to go through those experiences that they went through. But it was like presented to me in a way that it was like almost like they would be disappointed or something. It was very odd, and I think it was like out of trying to protect me more so than to hurt me. I don't really think anybody vindictively says something like that, especially if they're also queer, to say something that brutal to a young queer person. So there wasn't really anybody who was out. I didn't know any other skaters that were like out. So it was just, I was just trying to appease like this, like if nobody's done it, don't do it. And then I would say that this is all kind of around the time of like 2012, 2013. I'd like met and talked to a boy for the first time, kiss of death. And it was the first time I realized, okay, this isn't something I can just like hide from myself. I think that like it was just this moment where it was like I needed to profess it to myself. And I said it out loud for the first time. I started flirting with this like boy for the first time. It was like game changing. And then I moved from Michigan to California. And I think when I moved to California, it was like, that's what changed my life. Like California saved my life, because it was like where I could finally be who I really was and really find out and like learn more about myself on a personal level. Because up until that point, I had just, was like, I'll just deal with all the personal stuff when I'm done skating. And it just came to a front. I was like 22 at the time, and it just came to this point where I was like, I can't not acknowledge this part of me anymore. At this point in my life, I had met many other queer people in skating. Successful, very successful people in skating who still had not ever said anything. So that was the example of like, don't say anything. It's about 2013, and the Olympics are in Sochi. Russia passes this anti-gay LGBTQ propaganda law, where it was like, that was the first time I felt like, whoa. And it was this jarring moment of like, that's not right. I remember like the verbiage that we were all kind of given was that like, speak at your own risk. We don't know if you'd be putting teammates in danger. It was just very like, we don't really know. And so all of these questions are kind of now going through my head. Like, if I say something, am I putting myself in danger? Am I putting my family in danger? Am I putting teammates in danger? Am I risking my chances of even going now? But I took those opportunities not to like say out loud that like, I'm gay and this is wrong. I said that I don't think that, like, I don't agree with this. And I said it a few times and whatever. But I always wish that I had said more. Does it matter that I didn't say more? No, I didn't go. My identity was wrapped up in like being I wanted to be an Olympian. I did everything everyone said to do, and it still didn't work. So it was almost like the illusion had been broken. I barely had enough money to like get groceries. That humiliation of like, you swipe your card just to buy trail mix and like it doesn't go through. And you're like, okay, well at least when I go to the Olympics, all of this will change. And now you're not going. And now you also can't buy trail mix, and also you don't know how you're gonna pay for the lease of your car, and you're like just lucky that you're living in your coach's basement. But I think the most dangerous kind of person is someone who is at rock bottom. I had this opportunity to redo different moments in my life that I wish I had done differently. So I was like, you know what? What's the first thing I would redo? I was still fresh off of feeling like I wish I had said more going into Sochi. So I was like, I'm gonna come out. And I wanna be an out athlete, because I don't care, and I was really upset that I didn't say something before, that wasn't visible. It really bothered me. It really, really bothered me to like the core. You know, it came from like heartache, and it came from like needing to like almost feel valid and feel like it was okay to be me and be okay to be myself. And I said all of that like as a way of like speaking to like my younger self. I felt like when I came out, I really could kind of step into who I really was, and gave me more confidence. You know, I was now going into like a nationals or an international as like now the only out skater in the whole ISU. I didn't realize the impact it would have until I would eventually compete at an Olympic Games. We're at nationals. They announced the Olympic team. I'm on the Olympic team. And the next morning we need to do like press. So we go to this press conference, and it's the first time someone says to me like, you are going to be like the first out athlete to compete for the US at a Winter Olympics. Like, what does that mean to you? I'm like, good. I think it's good. For me, like my Olympic experience, yeah, I'm so happy that I was able to like skate cleanly, but like the biggest thing was that like I represented my country in like the best way I absolutely could have by like representing myself. Almost 4 years after like my own Olympic experience, I mean, it looks completely different. I mean, I've never seen so many like out skaters. I've never seen so many people share their own experiences and their own stories, and I've never seen like a governing body celebrate pride. Like, it's all of these things I never saw that are now part of the curriculum of like what happens, and it's amazing. I think that there's a long way to go for a lot of these things, and it's easy for me to say that because I'm out of it now. And like, you know, when we're out of that bubble and we look in, there's so many little things that like we don't realize aren't normal. I think one thing that's really tough about sports is that it's very on the binary. It's male or female. But I think what's also amazing about skating is that like it's this place of self-reflection when you're out there on your own. It's this place of self-expression. And I want all types of people to be able to feel that, because when you leave the rink at the end of the day and you feel like you've bettered yourself, it's this incredible sense of joy, this overwhelming joy. And I know how lucky I was to have people along the way to like help me. I know how lucky I was to like have a coach that was like, you work, and when you have money, you can pay me then. And I'm lucky for that. And I know that there's other people that have less access than I do. And I want there to be access for everyone, because like all of the good things that skating brought me, everybody deserves those good things.
Are you proud of yourself?
Yeah, I am proud of myself. I think, yeah, sometimes it's easy to not be or like not think about it. But when I have like a conversation like this, it's like sometimes I think of all the things like that I've done or that I've gone through or that I've said, and I'm like, I cannot believe I've said some of the things I've said. Or like when I think about the high pressure situations that I've been in, that I like acted in the way that I acted. So I'm very proud of myself. The reason I love the Trevor Project so much is that, you know, I was really lucky as a young kid to have a great community of people around me. Did I know what I was doing all the time? No. Do I still not know what I'm doing? I don't know what I'm doing now still. But, you know, I had really good people around me, and that's not the case for everyone. And also, even if you have really good people around you, it doesn't mean that you're, you know, sharing exactly how you feel. And the Trevor Project is this outlet for anyone to call into. It's a suicide prevention hotline for LGBTQ+ youth. it's an outlet for those kids who might feel like they have no one else to talk to, and as a last resort, there's someone there that can talk to them at their level and make everything feel not so serious, not so bad, and that they can make it through.
What would you say to this guy?
Oh, God. What would I say? First of all, great fleece. I would say, one, stop when you're throwing the tissues into the trash can, stop saying, if I make this shot, I'll win the Olympics. You're not gonna win the Olympics, but it's gonna be okay. The other thing I would say to this kid is that, like, everyone that you're gonna meet in your life, they're gonna love you, like, for who you are, because you say what's important, you speak up for them, you stand up, you're a good friend. You're bad at texting, but, like, you're a good friend nonetheless. And that, like, just wait. Sometimes you might have to wait a little longer for things, but it's okay. It makes it worth it. Sometimes it takes you a little longer to, like, learn the lesson, but don't forget to learn all the lessons along the way.
What does open ice mean to you? When you stand at center ice and you feel that, what is that for you?
It is, it's a shared experience. It's opportunity. It's just this joyful way of communicating whatever you want to communicate. Now we're more of the same height.
That's great.
Yeah, I used to think that for every time I was blessed in some way that there was a curse on the other side of it. Mm-hmm. And then I took a step back after I survived cancer, and it was like, oh, no, I had that all wrong. For every horrible curse, there was this incredible blessing. And it was like, that's how I want to live my life. And so what inspires me is seeing people that have been dealt a rough hand, and they just work it out. They figure out a way to rise above whatever is pushing them down, whatever is prohibiting them from, reaching their goals or allowing their legitimate selves to come out. They just rise above that.
May this interview serve the skating community around the world. Well, I think skating is, obviously, I think the skating is the best sport in the world because it combines the art and the sport and the athletic, the power and the grace, and it's just magical. It's divine. The openness and the space and the feeling and the wind and the speed is just, it's freedom. It's really, yeah, freedom, I would say, and probably that's why I loved it even in the beginning when I started to skate. It just gave me this feeling of flying, and I was in charge of my body and what I do, and it's like this. guess Finland is a little bit similar than Canada, that it's so winter sport country that everybody learns to skate, how to skate, and especially I learned that young because my dad was an ice hockey coach. So my sister started to skate, and I think I was 4 years old then when I went to the official skating school, but already before that I had skated outdoors in the on the lakes or outdoor rinks. I guess it really hit me hard quite in the beginning already, because then I didn't even want to try any other sport. Really, skating kind of took over, and I was so fascinated about the speed and the jumps and the feeling of flying that I'm sure every skater can relate to. I got hooked. After the Olympics, I became suddenly, almost overnight, a household name in Finland, and everybody knew me as this promising new ice princess. and with that, there were a lot of great things coming, like sponsors and publicity and opportunities and things. But then it also brought pressure, because, I was just a high school student, after all, 17 years old, trying to figure out who I was in the world, and then to have that suddenly, your life so public. I don't think I managed that so well after all, even if at the time I was like, okay, I can do it, but I feel like I tried to live my life more from the outside perspective, and to always think that how do I look and what do I say, and if I'm pleasing everyone, the federation and my parents and the coaches and la. But I definitely tried to live according to the Kiira Korpi, that was the ice princess, and that was the one always smiling, and that was the one that never said anything controversial and that would never hurt anyone's feelings. And that's kind of the downside of our sport, in a way, that young girls especially, well, probably all the skaters, but I feel like especially young girls are expected to be these perfect little creatures, smiling and doing these machine-like insane performances when you start to think about that. But then, it's a lot to handle, not only physically the training, but especially mentally and emotionally, the publicity and all, and then on top of that to add the pressure of the training, and sometimes even the toxic and abusive coaching techniques and culture. So part of the problem in the skating culture as a whole is that some of the old coaching techniques, or just the way of coaching that has been appreciated and sometimes is celebrated even today, is actually abusive and based on science. It's very destructive to the mental well-being of the people and the athletes, and I definitely have received my fair share of that kind of humiliation and, name calling, yelling, neglecting, emotionally abandoning you if you do not perform well in a competition or training. Then there's obviously the question about what is physical abuse or sexual harassment. If a coach comes to you, touches your body without asking you the permission, even if the intention would be good, I think there are a lot of things we need to rethink in skating, and also the way, if a coach, for example, or a federation pressures or encourages indirectly or directly a skater to perform when she's or they are injured or sick, is that physical abuse? I think it is, and I've also had those experiences when I've been my appearance have been celebrated, when I've been really sick and suffering from various things, but eating disorder for sure. So, but what has helped me after my career to maybe kind of heal myself is that I've tried to speak up for other athletes and raise awareness about these things, and because I see it's a cultural thing, and I'm sure many, for example, coaches, they don't set out or intend to abuse children or to, you know, hurt them, but it's just the old-fashioned ways of thinking about athletic training or success, and what it, like, there is this myth that if you are not like broken or somehow like really like suffering, then the training is not hard enough and you're not a real athlete. So that's one of the myths that I would like to break, because then having studied psychology, I know that from a scientific perspective, it doesn't make sense that we would need to break the kids or the athletes in order for them to perform well. It's actually the opposite way. The more relaxed and safe and confident and encouraged the children and the athletes feel, the better they are able to perform. And yeah, I just think these fear-based, cruelty-based training methods are old school, and we should abandon them and move on. Sorry, my English, but you got it. But then I think a really key figure later in life was a psychologist that I started to work. I think I was after I turned 20. I think she was one of the few, or one of the first people that didn't want to hear anything about the skater Kiira or the performing side of my skating. She was just like, how are you as a human being? And that was just incredibly freeing. Sometimes the human being is kind of forgotten, and I understand it in a way, because the skating career is so short and everybody wants to maximize the performance, and you want it as well as an athlete. But then how to be able to balance that the human being is not completely like forgotten underneath that. After my career, I didn't even remember some things, or I didn't even think that I would have some kind of like problems, and then they come up. Like, for example, I went to host and commentate the Olympics in 2018 for Eurosport, and when I went there, I just suddenly started to get these panic attacks, and I was completely confused, like, why? And then I spoke with my psychologist. Then she talked through this. I was like, then I realized, like, wow, it's my body almost thinks that I'm going to do it again, even if it's not for competing. I'm still in the Olympic setting, and I'm like, I guess the feeling why I almost felt this inner contradiction. I felt that, like, questioning, like, what's the point of Olympic sport? What's the point of like trying to get the medals if the price to get there is so high? And it started this like panic disorder that lasted for months, and it was so scary and confusing, and now I can like laugh about it, but it was back then, yeah, it was hard, but it was also a blessing that it kind of came up, and then I had no other choice than to go back and work through some of the painful experiences and feel the emotions that I hadn't had the chance or didn't feel safe enough to feel before. Because when you are a top athlete, I'm sure you know, you learn to dissociate from pain and from discomfort and from negative feelings, but because you have no time to like wallow, which is great in a way, because I feel like then that teaches you for life that you don't like, yeah, you get up and you try again. But then there is the shadow side. If you always just get up and always just put the smile on your face and never actually feel the hurt or the pain or that stuff, then that's not good. Because the body stores that inside of you, and I believe that's why sometimes you have physical injuries or illnesses, and then eventually, you know, mentally you can break down unless you work through this. And I'm so grateful that then I've had amazing people in my life, because they have created a safe space for me to then allow me to be me and really to talk about whatever I'm like going through without judging or without anything. So I've always been interested in the mind and how our brains work. So then I feel like I was kind of guided to this positive psychology course, and I was so into that, like, wow, I can like put all these like abilities that I have from my skating and this ambition and this work ethic, I can actually train my mind from this kind of fear-based negative thinking to a more you know, self-compassion. Nobody had taught me about self-compassion, which I think we should teach the kids already right in the beginning, to kids in schools, or maybe in like kindergarten, and at least in different sports, because I have read many studies that even athletes who have better capacity for self-compassion, in longer term, they perform better in their sport, because they are able to forgive and move on and see the bigger picture, and they are not so like so scared so easily. So I think this would be one of the most important things, and is one of the most important things that I try to kind of weave into my coaching. And if I were in charge of some training programs, I would definitely try to have these self-compassion practices, because it's not easy, especially if you have already done your career in a very self-disciplined way. And I remember always thinking that if I feel tired or something, I never thought that I should be more compassionate and take it more easy. I thought now I should work harder and try more, and I'm being lazy and And I'm sure that's a very common thing to think about, but the way I have learned to be more compassionate towards myself has been through the positive psychology course and practices, and just I guess it has helped me to be in compassionate spaces with others, like with my therapist or like with my friends, that I've been able to talk about my like weak points, or like the shadow sides that I wanted to hide before. But then I've also done like practices on my own. It can be as simple as a 5-minute thing where you breathe and you just try to get in touch with yourself and allow what's there. And yeah, maybe one of the most precious things about positive psychology that I learned was that all feelings are important. Like all the emotions are part of the human experience, and we shouldn't so much judge them as like just negative or positive. Obviously, some feelings are more unpleasant, and I've witnessed in myself and in other people that I work with that the more you allow yourself to feel those unpleasant feelings, the more then like space opens up for the joyful feelings, and you start like sensing life and the colors and the beauty of the world and humans and yourself in a much deeper way. But yeah, I hope that not everyone would have to experience the like massive like crash that I had to in order to like start figuring those things out, that we could teach them earlier. Well, I chose a Swedish charity. It's called the Protection and Action for Children's Rights in Sports. And I'm very grateful that I've got to know this organization and that people get to know this through what you're doing.
PAC's work is based on the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, and it aims to protect children's right to a safe childhood full of joy and movement.
And I'm so grateful that people are listening and that we are together making a difference.
What would you say to this little girl?
Oh. Oh, wow. What would I say to her? I would probably say that you are gonna have an interesting life. A lot of things are gonna happen, but you're gonna make it to the other side, and it's all good, and you're enough the way you are, and there is a meaning behind what you go through in life.
You mentioned that the first 2 shows you ever did were fundraisers.
Mm-hmm.
Why was that important for you right from the beginning?
My mom sacrificed everything to keep me in skating because it out of my childhood illness, it was the one thing that actually got me healthy again. So she never bought any clothes for herself. She never did anything for herself. It was always for her children, right? And they sacrificed a lot to keep me in skating. And the day that I lost her to cancer was the day that I realized that I wanted to become a fundraiser. I wanted to raise money for cancer. And so I've been doing that for 44 years. I've been raising money for cancer. So it started off like I lost her, and then that next year I was 9th at nationals. And the next year I decided I was gonna, in my grief, take her to the ice with me every single day, every single session, every single thing I was gonna do to honor her and to try to be the person she thought I could be. She had dreams that, she goes, we're gonna go to the Olympics someday. And I'd say, based on what? I'm really not, like, so I just became a different person. And so when I made Worlds that year, I went back to Bowling Green and I took everybody with me, and we put on a big fundraising show for cancer, and I think we raised $25,000, and it was like, okay, I'm hooked. I want to do this all the time. And so we would go back, all of the world team, like all of them, we'd all go back to Bowling Green, and we put these shows on every other year, and it just became this thing, right, where we just, and audiences were spectacular. I mean, it was, I don't want to insult anybody, but it was like the best skating audience. They were so educated. There was 23 standing ovations every show. I mean, it was unbelievable. And we were raising money for cancer. So I'd always wanted to do shows using skating to save lives and to do good in the community. And so it's just appropriate that those two shows after the Olympics that kind of were back to back they were for cancer research. And even to this day, like 20 years after I lost my mom, I'm diagnosed with cancer. And now I understand it from a completely different point of view. And now I go from being a fundraiser to being more of an activist, where I want to change the way people are treated for cancer. So, and the way they go through their cancer experience. So all the shows that you did for me, which you were amazing, amazing. I'm just so grateful to be able to share the sport that I love the most, and music, which I've always loved, always, to combine them to do something really spectacular and try to change the world.
Tell me what CARES does.
CARES, in its infancy, when we first started CARES, it came out of my survivorship of cancer. It was the Cancer Alliance for Research, Education, Survivorship. It wasn't just about research, because I realized in my time of chemo and surgery and everything else, there were so many gaps in the cancer community that just instilled fear and suffering. And I realized that that's the first two things we need to figure out. And so for the last 7 years, we've been an independent foundation, and we funded a mountain of research. And it's all based in immunotherapy. It's really wild. We say we're going to treat the cancer and spare the patient harm, which is not the status quo. Yeah. But it started with an idea of, I just survived cancer and it could have been better. Mm-hmm. How do we make it better for the next? Mm-hmm.
My sister, her name was Julde. She was the first out of the 4 of us kids to skate. She loved figure skating. She actually is the one that was telling my mom every day that she would teach me how to skate. But unfortunately, at the age of 6, she was diagnosed with leukemia. It was a late diagnosis, and so in Russia they didn't have the proper medicine and procedures to heal her, so they suggested to go to Germany, and that's where we went to Bonn. We spent a few months there, but unfortunately it didn't work out, and so she ended up passing away in Germany at the age of 7, which was a very difficult thing for my for the family and for my parents. I don't remember her because I was so young. I was not even a year old when she passed away, but I do have a feeling my whole life that she's been there with us.
I love this story. Tell me about your mom and dad.
Yeah, my mom and dad. So mom grew up in Russia. She started skating, I think also around the age of 6. So she was a figure skater when she was young, and obviously right away fell in love with the sport. She's like the biggest skating fan. My father is from Guinea, West Africa. He grew up in a small village where they don't have electricity, they don't have running water, they live with nature. They have goats, chicken, cows, they grow their food. Finally, one day ended up making it to the capital where he studied university, and then from the capital, then he was invited to go to Russia to further his education. So that's where he met my mom. At the time in 1992, the Soviet Union crashed, and so mafia had taken over everything. It was just not a good place to live. People were dying of, of hunger, and also my dad suffered a lot of racism in Russia at the time, like physical. He's told me that some of his friends have died because they got into an altercation or a fight with some Russian men, and myself and my younger sister would get spit on for being half African. So that's kind of what my parents experienced in Russia at the time. I think now, I identify as all of it, Russian, African, Canadian. There's so much richness in my dad's culture in Guinea. There's so much in my mom's culture in Russia, and there's so much in Canada. And so I feel that I'm extremely grateful to be able to have learned from all of these different cultures and taken the things that I learned from each culture that I'm able to apply now and I'm able to identify with. My dad, growing up in Africa, and then for me to go to Africa and feel the connection that they have with each other in the village, to feel the groundedness they have with earth, with nature, with themselves, was truly life-changing on a deep way. And I feel like I absorbed it, and I try to operate from that space always. I felt this sense of oneness when I was there in the village with my family, and my father has 27 siblings, and they all have 5-6 kids. So in the village, there's 50, 20, 30 to 50 of us, and we're all related, we're all family, and there's this sense of community, this sense of relationship that I don't think I'd felt or seen before anywhere else. And I think that's something I take with me deeply. So I definitely identify with the three of them, but I'd say growing up, there was a lot of confusion, right? There was a lot of confusion because growing up in the skating community, people would see me as the Russian kid, and anytime they'd refer to me, in terms of the figure skating realm, it was always because I was Russian, because the Russian culture. That was always the reason why I was good at figure skating, was because I was Russian. But then at the same time, people would look at my, the height in my jumps. They would immediately say, oh, well, the only reason why you jump high is because you're black. So there was always this kind of like this division between, people viewing me as Russian and referring to me as, I'm not like the other black people, I'm chill, I'm Russian. So having that part of me denied, that part that was black in me denied from me in the figure skating world, was something that I subconsciously absorbed. But then on the other side, when I was hanging out with my group of guys, from high school, we're all African, but there was always a disconnection too, because I was always viewed as the light skin or the biracial guy. I'm not fully black, so I didn't fully fit in the group of black people. I didn't really fit in the group of white people, and so there was this kind of sense where I didn't know where I fit in. So I learned obviously how to code switch and adapt to any situation in order to be accepted.
Take us back to June.
I don't think anyone were ready for the power that the murder of George Floyd had on the world. We've seen countless of videos of black men and women being beaten or killed by the police or by people, acts of racism that you just don't think that is humanly possible. But it was always it was always temporary. You know, it was always there for a moment, and then it was gone again. And so I think for me, and for I know for a lot of Black people, you know, you had to learn how to almost numb yourself to it, because you know that this is momentary. I wasn't ready, and I didn't know that it was gonna change everything. What happened to me in that moment, when I started realizing that people were not letting it go, that people started listening, and people started seeing and acknowledging the experience of Black people in America and in Canada. It made me go back in my own life and in my skating career, and it made me realize that there was a lot of things that I experienced that were based in discrimination, that were based in prejudice, that were based in systemic racism, that were based in lack of representation, that I hadn't necessarily allowed myself to think about. And there's a lot of things that I unconsciously did, or there was a lot of actions I took that were based in trying to survive because of systemic racism that I didn't even realize I was doing. I didn't realize I changed the way that I dressed, I changed the way that I talked, I changed the type of music I listened to. You know, I wanted to fit in, and so I made myself look more white, and people accepted that, and I got validation for it. But all of that were unconscious actions, and deep down they were hurting me because I didn't feel authentic. I didn't feel like that was me. I think for the first time in June, I accepted who I was, and at that point I took it upon myself to help shift this ecosystem we live in, help shift this environment that we live in. I think there was a moment where I felt like the world was moving in the right direction and people were listening, and it gave me the fuel I needed to not stay silent anymore. I was lucky enough that my first few experiences of me speaking out were somewhat positive. But there came moments where for the first time I experienced resistance. I experienced my story not being accepted. And that's when I started realizing that this is going to be a difficult journey, because there's going to be a lot of people that are not going to want to listen to this. They're not going to want to accept what's happening, and they're not going to want to accept to see the reality that we live in. It forces you to sit there and almost fight for, not only fight for what's right, but it almost puts you in a position where you have to plead your case. Wait, what? Injustice is injustice. When I went through what I went through and I let myself heal, at that point it was easy for me to decide that I was going to pursue the mission of wanting to change figure skating, and I committed to be the representation for young Black, Indigenous, and people of color in a way that I didn't have. I started connecting with other skaters of color around the world, and we decided to co-found the Figure Skating Diversity Inclusion Alliance, and that's when it started. When we started realizing that we were all from different places in the world, but we all had similar experiences. We wanted to create a space, an environment for Black skaters to come together and share their experiences and heal, and feel like they have a community, feel like they can be themselves, feel like they can share their story, and for that not to be denied. And it was really powerful. you know, we connected with former skaters like Surya Bonali, and we brought her in and we listened to her story, and we saw the pain that she was in. We saw everything that she's been through, and how almost hopeless she was, because, you know, nothing had changed since. And so why would things change now? Which you know, all of us felt and all of us understood. And so we were able to heal together. We were able to make connections in ways that we wouldn't have been able to before. We've committed to increasing representation. We've committed to increasing accessibility to Black, Indigenous, and people of color to be able to access figure skating. And once they're in, to help these kids with whatever they need in order for them to be successful. And again, whatever success means to them, you know, it can be anything. We want to be part of that journey. And, you know, we have a beautiful team who have created the Big Skater, Little Skater mentorship program. We meet with mentees and we help them with whatever they need, whether it's, again, psychological, emotional support, or again, with equipment. We try to connect with their coaches to see what the coaches think they might need. And that's been a beautiful, yeah, it's been beautiful to be able to connect with the next generation of skaters and to see the impact that we can have on these kids is huge. You can see the joy in their faces. You can see how inspired they are, and you can see how much impact you're having. And I think that is where we want to be, and that's why there's never a question of stopping or leaving, because you know, when you get messages from parents, you know, saying thank you, you've inspired my young boy or girl to skate, to continue to skate. It's beautiful. If we can give that to someone, the ability or the fuel to continue to do what they love. That's it. I know the fight is hard. I know the journey is not an easy one. It's a constant battle, and I'm committed to it. No matter what we will experience, I'll be here. My vision for skating is for it to look different. Actually look different. Look more diverse, where you see people of color from different cultures, from different areas, skate at the highest level, or skate with authenticity, you know.
What would you tell baby skaters?
Oh my God. Oh my God. Be you. Like, be yourself. Be that, and just embrace who you are. Love who you are, and know that that's enough. Know that you're enough. That picture, oh my God. Yeah, just I want to tell him to just, you know, be himself, embrace it, and that you're enough. You don't have to be anything else. Just be.
So this is for the young skaters out there that maybe are taking their first steps onto the ice. Dream. Dare to dream. And be brave in those dreams. And realize that everything and anything and all things are possible.
When you walk through a storm, hold your head up high and don't be afraid of the dark. At the end of the storm is a golden sky and the sweet silver song of a lark. Walk on through the wind, walk on through the rain, all your dreams be tossed and blown. Walk on with hope in your heart, and you'll never walk alone. You'll never